Imagine a smell. Maybe it's the crisp scent of fresh laundry blowing in the wind, or that very distinct earthy aroma of rain hitting hot pavement on a summer afternoon. Or, maybe it's a specific perfume that someone you loved used to wear. You catch a passing breeze of it, and instantly, literally without any warning, you are teleported. You're thrown years, maybe even decades into the past. We've all experienced this, right? It's a completely universal human phenomenon, but we rarely stop to think about the sheer power of what's actually happening.
When this happens, you have to realize that this isn't just remembering. It's not like you're pulling a dusty file out of a cabinet in your brain. For that one split second, you are actually there again. You're breathing the same air, you have the exact same feeling in your chest, the same atmosphere completely surrounds you. You are entirely that past version of yourself. It's a total sensory takeover. And this exact, fleeting, almost magical experience, it utterly obsessed one man more than almost anyone else in history. Enter Marcel Proust. He was a French novelist, and his absolute obsession with these fleeting, resurrecting moments of memory led him to create one of the longest, slowest, most intimidating, and honestly, most profoundly beautiful works of art ever created. Now, he wasn't just trying to write a fun story. He was trying to solve a fundamental problem, the problem of time. He was completely captivated by the terrifying reality that our lives literally disappear while we are busy living them. And that obsession led to his absolute masterpiece, In Search of Lost Time. Now, calling this a book feels like a massive understatement. It is a staggering 7-volume behemoth. It's this towering exploration of memory, of aging, and of time itself just slipping right through our fingers. The sentences are famously long. Sometimes they wrap around entire pages like some kind of fever dream. And reading it can actually feel incredibly strange at first, because in the traditional sense of a plot, almost nothing happens. We're talking about 4,000 pages. 4,000. Just let the sheer volume of that sink in for a second. There are entire sections of this book where the narrator simply remembers a dinner party. For 40 pages. But here's the thing. That agonizing slowness is entirely the point. It is absolutely not a mistake. It's a method. Proust doesn't want you to rush to the next plot point. He wants you to stop. He wants you to linger inside the experience itself, to truly sit inside a thought or a passing feeling. He purposefully forces this lingering pace because he truly believed memory is our only defense against losing everything. If we don't slow down to capture these moments, time is just going to ruthlessly sweep them away into nothingness. The past only exists if we can hold on to it, right? If we can find a way to anchor it in our minds before it just evaporates completely. Now, it's really important to make a quick distinction here. When Proust titles his work In Search of Lost Time, he does not mean wasted time in the way we might think of, say, spending 4 hours mindlessly scrolling on our phones. Lost time refers to the past itself. It refers to childhood. It's about the parts of life that naturally, quietly vanish before we even realize they had any significance. It's the beautiful, heartbreaking tragedy of living life forward, but only actually understanding it backward. This profound realization didn't come out of nowhere. It came directly from Proust's own life. Despite becoming this absolute titan of literature, Proust spent years of his early adulthood doing the exact opposite of profound writing. He was a Parisian socialite. He went to endless parties, he social climbed, he desperately tried to impress the wealthy elites of Paris. But eventually, he was haunted by a very modern fear, the fear that those years were just entirely empty. He felt like he was doing things constantly, but not truly living deeply, moving fast, but experiencing almost nothing. So born in 1871 into a wealthy family, Proust was an incredibly hypersensitive kid. He noticed every tiny shift in the light, every underlying social tension, every little emotional fluctuation that everyone else just completely ignored. He was also deeply, deeply attached to his mother. And then in 1905, the devastating blow strikes. His beloved mother dies, and something inside Proust simply collapsed. Most people, when they're faced with profound grief, they try to move outward, right? They try to distract themselves with the busy world. Proust did the exact opposite. He completely withdrew. He sealed himself inside his bedroom in Paris and literally lined the walls with cork to block out all the noise of the city. He locked himself in this dark, silent space, just writing feverishly through the night. It sounds incredibly depressing, and in a lot of ways, it was an agonizing isolation. But inside that dark, quiet isolation, he was asking himself a really fundamental question. How do you unlock a buried life?
How do you reach back into the dark abyss of time and pull out the vibrant, emotional truth of who you used to be? Well, the answer he found was a brilliant literary breakthrough, and amazingly enough, it centers around perhaps the most famous pastry in all of human history. It all comes down to the Madeleine Moment. This scene is so iconic that even people who have literally never read a single word of Proust know about it. The narrator of the book is feeling kind of melancholic, and he takes a spoonful of tea with a piece of a small, shell-shaped sponge cake, a madeleine, dipped inside it. The second that taste hits his tongue, he is completely overwhelmed by an unexplainable, transcendent joy. The taste just unlocks a door deep inside him. And this brilliantly illustrates his revolutionary concept, involuntary memory. True memories, Proust argues, don't work through logical reconstruction. It's not like trying to map out your childhood on a Sunday morning over coffee. They ambush you. They bypass your logic entirely and strike through tiny sensory details, a taste, a smell, a slant of light. Involuntary memory is the only true memory because you aren't just thinking about the past. Your body and your soul are actually feeling it all over again. Which leads us to the terrifying genius of Proust's overarching realization. Huge, vast portions of our lives quietly blur and vanish. Days turn into months, years collapse into each other, and the people we used to be become entirely inaccessible to us. They're just locked away in the dark. Unless, and this is the absolute key, unless they are unexpectedly unlocked by one of these random involuntary sensory triggers. Because of this, Proust became entirely obsessed with capturing these resurrected seconds. He realized that if memory is just a fleeting spark, then art has to be the jar that catches the lightning. He used his massive 4,000-page book as a literal weapon. He was wielding his words to fight against the relentless erasing passage of time. He desperately wanted to preserve the essence of human experience before the clock could wash it all away. But looking at the intense scope of his isolation, it brings up a really compelling question. Was Proust's life actually a tragedy? I mean, is it ultimately tragic to spend your entire adult life locked away in a cork-lined room, desperately longing for the emotional intensity of your youth? He was almost like a ghost, permanently haunted by the fact that time only moves in one direction. It paints a pretty sad picture of a man flat out refusing to live in the present. But there's a twist. Proust ultimately recognized a beautiful contradiction in his own existence. He realized that if he hadn't lived those seemingly wasted, empty years as a shallow Parisian socialite, he would never have gathered the raw material in the first place. Without living, even if he was living badly, he would have had no emotional truth, no heartbreak, no sharp societal observations to later transform into his monumental art. And this is the profound core of why his work resonates so deeply with us today. Life disappears. It is the inescapable rule of the universe. But art is the vessel that catches the falling fragments of our disappearing lives. Whether it's a painting, a piece of music, or a 4,000-page novel, art allows us to freeze the impermanent and say, this happened, this mattered, I felt this. Honestly, this is why Proust is the absolute ultimate antidote to modern attention. Just look around us. We live in a digital world that is furiously fast, incredibly disposable, and constantly, endlessly scrolling. We consume thousands of images and experiences every single day, but we rarely digest any of them. In this environment, Proust's deliberate, agonizing slowness doesn't just feel refreshing, it feels like a completely necessary act of rebellion. He demands that we sit inside the moment. He forces us to stop sprinting toward the next distraction and instead actually notice the texture of our own lives. He teaches us that if we hold on to a moment long enough, if we just examine it with enough care and sensitivity, even the most mundane, everyday experience can become incredibly meaningful. He basically wakes us up to the life we are already living,